First, a little bit about me. I actually have an accounting degree. I have 15 years of accounting experience, but I quit my job and I've been a full-time writer for 6.5 years. It'll be 7 years this summer. And over this course of this, 7 years, it's been incredible. I've worked with a lot of amazing minds. I worked with a lot of bestsellers. I was actually on the team for a New York Times bestseller for about a year, and I was learning and growing in the background. And I've written 2 books that you can get on Amazon right now. One of them is Readying Fire. It's about goals. And the other is Focus Booster. I do have a background in productivity, but I love all kinds of writing, and I've ghost written some books, and I've a pretty decent background in a lot of different kinds of writing. And one of my passions too is fiction. I'm actually working on editing my novel like right now. Like I just sent some of it to my editor just a couple days ago. A few names just to give you some more context. I've worked with like Gretchen Rubin. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's an amazing author. I've worked with John Acuff. I've worked with a lot of bestsellers, and I've just kind of pieced together all of these things. All right, Gretchen Rubin fan. And I will mention this about her even. Like her story, I'm gonna refer to her again. And I actually helped her build some courses and put together some emails and things like that. If you're writing, it really helps to have a good, diverse background. Because if you put all your chips in just one spot, it's hard to transition. It's hard to change. And I will mention Gretchen here. She's a lawyer, has a lawyer background. She wrote some fiction, and she has a couple novels out, like on Amazon, I believe. But now she's known for like happiness, and she's also known for that really cool tool, the 4 tendencies. So great example with her. It's like she went to fiction, she pivoted, toward happiness, toward, life, toward productivity with the 4 tendencies. It's like having that ability to pivot is huge. And that's one thing that you're going to notice with all these bestsellers. So let's dive in. I want to share, again, as much as I possibly can. You might think that being a bestseller is about talent. It's not. It's not. Because here's the secret. If you go on Amazon and look up some of your favorite books, have you ever done that? Like if I look up some of my favorite books, I'm always kind of shocked. I'm like, this is a 5-star book. I love Catcher in the Rye, but a lot of people hate that book. Like there's a whole community. They're like, I hate this book. The main character is too whiny. So I'll look it up and I'll see all these 1-star reviews. So a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people like it. There's also that range in between. So I challenge you, when you get a moment, look up some of your favorite books, some of those best-selling books that you're just like, I love this book. I really enjoy this book. Look it up. It's not a talent thing. Rather, it's about context. Context is so key. You have to know who your audience is, what your audience wants. And often we're too broad, right? With who we're selecting, like who we're writing for. And I want to help you try to narrow that down, like narrow that scope, because often we're writing for ourselves, right? If we're really, really honest, or we're writing for ourselves like 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, maybe even a couple years ago. It doesn't really matter. The point is, you really have to know who you're writing for. It's not about talent, because I can tell you right now, if you're the most talented writer in the world, but you're a lousy marketer and you're not filling a direct need, you're not selling many books. I don't know if you've ever read a book and you're like, wow, this is really well written. And then you're like, what did I just read? I've read a few books like that. It's like, oh my gosh, I was caught up in the prose and it was beautiful and well written. Well, was there any takeaway value? Was there something, I mean, if it's different if it's a great story, because then you're like, oh, check out this story. It's a great story. But if you're like reading and you're like, yeah, it's well written, but it's not a talent thing. It really isn't. It's more about connecting with your audience, connecting and resonating with your audience. That is so important. If you're not resonating with your audience, you're not doing your job. And one thing I will mention kind of in advance, I'm not saying that you should just write. I think that's a mistake that writers make. And I'm a writer. I'm with you. I totally get it. It's like, you might be like, what are you talking about? Video? Are you talking about podcasts? Are you talking about, social media? I'm talking about all of that. I think we need to think more like a content machine, like a content production, agency. Like you are your own little team because you're publishing content. And one thing I've noticed over the years, it's like, if you follow a writer and all they do is release a book like every few years, they almost always have to have some other job because that's not going to work. Like that's not a business model. Most writers that are bestsellers, they're also speakers. They're also consultants. They're also coaches. And if you're taking that part out of the equation, it probably doesn't work unless you have many, many, many bestsellers kind of in the background, unless you have an extensive catalog. It's not working. Like the math doesn't work because a bestseller doesn't necessarily even mean that you're moving that many books. It means you're moving the right books for a limited amount of time. The New York Times bestseller list is so focused. It's like they basically have to like you. You have to sell certain physical copies in certain bookstores. It's really funky and really fuzzy. And I'm sure that's only going to continue to change in 2021 and beyond. So you really have to think, okay, what's the real business looking like? I've spoke with folks that work at agencies, and the head of the agency was a bestseller. And he's multiple bestseller. And the guy just told me blunt, he's like, he makes 5 times more coaching and consulting and speaking than he does from book sales. So if you're wanting to really think like a bestseller, you have to start thinking, okay, what does their overall business look like? I'm sure even for some of the examples we mentioned earlier, it's more consulting. It's more, having courses. It's more having other products, because the more income streams you have, by default, the more you're going to think like one of those bestsellers. You want to push those chips, to the table, and you don't want to put all of it on one spot. You want to diversify a little bit and say, okay, let's go with a course, a product, a workbook that complements another book, maybe some coaching, a mastermind. That's what it looks like more than just I'm only writing a book and it's going to be a bestseller. And I've seen it over and over and over because I've helped build these courses. It's almost always never just about the writing. And even Stephen King, look at him, probably the best-selling writer of all time, at least one of the top, right? Guess what? He's all over Twitter. He's doing interviews all the time. There's a ton of interviews as far as on YouTube. Even Stephen King is doing the video thing. He speaks a lot. I've seen a lot of interviews where he goes to libraries and events and things. So even for Stephen King, if he's doing all of these things, and yes, some of it might be, hey, I want to push my new book. That makes sense. That's how it works. But he's also, he's selling a lot of his books to make movies. They become screenplays that become movies. So there's a lot going on in the mix here versus, hey, just writing, that one book and basing everything off of one book. Now, you do have to start somewhere. You're not just going to say, okay, and I have this amazing back catalog now of all my books. No, you have to start somewhere. And I think that is the key right now for most of us, to just pick a topic and to focus on it and to hone in. Try to pick something that really focuses on serving a need. And even if it's like a fiction book, even if it's like a novel, you want to solve the problem of boredom. You want to solve the problem of, oh, this person has a few minutes and they just want to fill their time with an engaging story. But most of the time, if you really break it down, and the easiest books that you can write and create, they're going to fill a specific need. Minimalism, that is a really big topic. And I saw that the Minimalists have a new movie on Netflix. It just went on. And I think this is their second movie. And I found that really interesting because I don't think they've actually formally put out a book that, is with publishers and has been a bestseller, but they easily could. I think it's kind of going against what they stand for essentially with books, like physical books. I think that's why I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe they focus more on ebooks because of that, specific mindset of minimalism. But the point is, the more we can create in one area in written text, the more you can create in audio and in video. And the more you repurpose, the more you're going to be able to think like a bestseller, because those bestsellers, they have a team around them. And it might not be like all these people on payroll. I'm not saying they have like a team of, some do, some don't. But I'm saying they're using tools so they can build a team around them as far as, if this, then that. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. If this, then that. If you post on, Instagram, it'll also post on Facebook. If you post a story on Instagram, it'll also post on Facebook. If you post on LinkedIn, it'll post on Twitter, that kind of thing, where you can use those tools to expand your reach and to build a team around you. It's like a virtual team, but they're not all like on your payroll. I'm not saying everybody needs to go hire a bunch of virtual assistants. I'm saying, you put those tools in place and then you can start stepping up your content. And here's something I wish someone would have told me years ago. Do not hesitate for a moment to repurpose your content, because that's what everyone is doing. All of these bestsellers, they're repurposing their content. Podcasts can easily be turned into blog posts and vice versa. YouTube videos, you can always lift the audio and then you have a podcast. So there's so many things. We have to embrace the triple threat in 2021 and beyond. The triple threat of audio, text, and video. You guys know I'm saying that because we all want to step it up more and do that. You can absolutely do that. So I want to rattle through a few more. I don't want to take too much of your time here. We have a few more things here. Use your tools. Do not hop around. Pick those tools that you want to use. Don't jump around. Try to figure it out and set a clear time frame. Don't say, I'm going to do these tools for forever. Try them out for 6 months. If they don't work, but I don't want you to get into that hopping around tools kind of thing, because I've seen that firsthand with my productivity coaching in the past. That can just be a blockade after blockade because you keep looking for the new shiny tool. Use the tools that work for you. Also, embrace your fear. When you do that, you can reinvent yourself. Embrace it head on. Do not hesitate to do something scary. You must reinvent yourself. If you want to think like a best-selling author, if you want to think like a business, really, you need to embrace that and keep just attacking the fear. Lean into it. You'll be okay. And lastly, I want to say, don't try to implement everything at once. Take it simple. Take it one step at a time. Because as you're writing, you're using a lot of energy. Take it at your own pace. Do not try to do more, than you can possibly do. Don't think of yourself at a buffet and you can just keep adding more to your plate. You only have so much space, you only have so much mental energy. So play to your strengths and repurpose. That's really the key. That's what all of these best-selling authors that I've worked with are doing. That's the way you can be your best. That's the way you can do your best work and resonate most with your audience too. So that's my little speech for you there. I hope this encourages you. Take it one step at a time. Do not try to do everything at once. Play to your strengths and then find a way to repurpose. Okay, so literally, say you write first. Okay, great. Then record that. You can do a podcast easily. Anchor.fm. Grab your phone. You can have a podcast up today. Don't aim for perfection either. A podcast is really easy to establish. And it's probably the best way to reach your peeps, frankly. So make Instagram videos, make an Instagram story, a Facebook story. Those go away. They're not around forever. So it's a great way to get your feet wet. Just talking about the content you just created as a blog post, that's pretty natural. And again, take your time. I'm not saying do everything today, but pick one thing, create it, publish it, find another way to repurpose it. That's, I think, the very best steps you can take today. So my call to action for you, I have been working with new clients as far as making a content strategy for 2021. Fire me an email. We'll chat about it. I have been doing this for quite a while. It's so much more helpful to not wing it, right? So fire me an email, jimwoodswrites@gmail.com. That is it. The price is $150. I do some research for you. We chat for an hour, diving into your content strategy, because this could save you so much time and frustration in 2021. This is the perfect time to get your ducks in a row, right? Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for joining. Any questions you have, I will be glad to answer. Okay, Russ published some articles, decent following on Medium. Now I want to get to the next level by publishing a book. Ooh. Lots of questions, Russ. What are your goals? What are your goals? Because here's the thing. I prefer self-publishing. I'm an antsy person. I don't want to wait around for years. And I'm just full disclosure. I don't think it's worth it. However, if you want to be a bestseller who is, doing speeches, you want to be a bestseller. Okay. If you want to be a best-selling author, I try to narrow that down even more. Like what list, what area specifically. I would say nobody's going to, you got to build up that email list. You absolutely, more than ever, they're going to bank on the number of subscribers you have. You need a following before you can get an agent, before you can get a publishing deal in most cases, because you're that much more of a safe bet. You really, really, really need the email list. That is foundational, and it's harder. It's harder than ever. So in that specific area, focus on value and providing lots and lots of value. I love this approach. Make the readers a Godfather offer, meaning it's one they can't refuse. They're like, oh my gosh, yes, I have to do that. Do you have to consider the algorithms up front in writing or after the fact in marketing? I think you have to consider it, but you don't have to bank everything on it. And this even, Lori, goes right back to what I was saying to Russ. The more you have an email list, the more you have some peeps around something, you're driving it. You know what I mean? Specific example, My first book, Ready, Aim, Fire, I had a co-author, Eric Fisher. Great guy, love him. He has a podcast, Beyond the To-Do List, okay? Productivity podcast. He literally promoted the book on his show. He was able to do it, through his show. He had his audience there. That was the key to success. And we self-pubbed. But my point is, like, if you can get some people around a specific topic, the marketing, like, as long as they're cool with it and it's your peeps and you have them like right here, you're like, okay, I have my peeps here. I've been working with this community. We're all together in this. They told me they want this. Okay, you pretty much validated it. So that email list, that funnel even of a podcast with a lot of listeners, all of this is going to come into the picture. Because Google, I wouldn't let Google dictate anything, frankly. Now, if it's a very, very, very oversaturated topic, you just have to be sure that you have your unique spin on it, if that makes sense. I think that's really important. Like, you have to make sure and put your thumb on it, put your thumb over it, thumb test, put your thumb over their name. Does your content stand out? Is it like, this is me over here and it's obvious? Or is it like vanilla? If you're like writing about finances or something like that, it's a whole world of vanilla. But a rocky road is really going to stand out. And I think that's the key right there. And that's the marketing. Forget the Amazon, forget the Google on that. Your voice, your approach, your personality, and you also have some community around it. All that other stuff is, blinders up. Don't worry about that. Because you have your peeps, you have your voice right there. Teresa says she agrees with me about the email list, although mine I received Amazon new release. They linked through see the book. Yeah, that's helpful too. Absolutely. Why not, right? Absolutely. I think that when it comes to like the title for your book, that's when you have to consider a little bit more. And that might be what you're asking with the marketing. You don't ideally want to have the same title. You want to have it at least somewhat different. And I will say this, full disclosure, I screwed up in the second book naming of my second book. I called it Focus Booster. And it's done pretty well, but not as well as it should have. Because type in Focus Booster on Amazon, all those supplements. I screwed up on that, but I didn't want to change the name completely again. Like, I didn't want to do that. Sometimes it is a challenge, no doubt, but as long as you have a podcast, an audience, an email list, a YouTube channel, as long as you have a community around something, that's the key. Like, if you're just building it and like, hey, here it is, hope you dig it. I don't want to say that's the hardest way to do it. You're trying to convince people like, hey, you need this. Hey, you need this. It's a whole lot easier, to have if you have ants in your house, you call the exterminator, right? Much easier to sell that versus, hey, I have some supplements. You need these vitamins. Aspirin sells a lot better than, supplements and vitamins, right? Aspirin is solving a problem, instant relief, pain management there. Vitamins, you're kind of selling vitamins. Hey, you need this. That's really hard because that is a challenge. I think that you need to consider that. It's like, well, what pain are you relieving? What problem are you solving? That is huge right there. And I think that is, it's a unique challenge because so often we don't think enough about that. It's like, hey, I really care about this. Asking, why do you care about it? What's in it for me is what that audience is thinking. And that's why it's so important to validate something before you really, really dive in. I started writing a book on rest and I was like, this is really hard. And I actually stopped writing it. I was like, I this is hard because it looks different for everybody. And half the people out there think rest is sleep. So I pumped the brakes. I didn't finish the book. I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'll talk about it, but I'm not going to write a whole book on rest right now. There's no way. It's just a bad idea for me until I have more of an idea of like what it looks like for different people, you know, your personality, time of life. It's cool to not write something because you're like, go to something you have more clarity on, and build it from the angle of clarity. And you know, experimentation is so huge too. That's a key factor with writing, and especially with all of these bestsellers. Thank you, Erica. Thanks again. And again, feel free to email me. jimwoodswrites@gmail.com is my handle. I don't really have some fancy pitch. If you want to keep in touch though, I'm on Medium, Jim Woods Writes. I love helping other writers. So you guys, I'm pretty transparent, as you know here. Any way I can help you, glad to help you. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Thanks for everything. If you have any more questions, I'm just going to type this in here. That's my email there again. Any questions, insider info, you know, marketing, you name it. Glad to help you. I work with writers all the time, as far as coaching or, you know, editing, whatever it is you need, because I'm one of you. Thank you so much, Joseph. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I had to laugh because this has been an amazing opportunity. This has been so much fun. And Jim Woods Writes. I wish Jim was right all the time. Jim Woods Writes is me on Medium. Thanks for asking, Lori. I appreciate that. Jim Woods Writes on Medium, and I have my own pub. Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate that. I have my own pub to write stuff. It's just me. I don't have any other. That's the my link to my publication. Thanks again, guys. I hope you're enjoying momentum here. I appreciate you so much. Thanks again. Any questions, feel free to email me, and have a good one. Best of luck to you. Feel free to email me. Tell me about your book. Tell me what you're up to, because we need to market more, all of us. So please, you know, I'm asking for you. Pitch me. Tell me your book. Tell me what it is you're doing. I'd love to hear about it. Thanks again. Really appreciate you guys, and have a good one. I'll talk to you later.